Airline water safety exposes gaps in ADWR compliance. A newly released 2026 airline water study highlights wide variation in the quality of onboard drinking water across U.S. carriers. While the findings have drawn consumer attention, the more consequential takeaway for executives is that aircraft water safety is governed by a federal compliance rule, and persistent performance gaps point to execution and oversight risk, not ambiguity in the standard. The study, conducted by the Center for Food as Medicine and Longevity, analyzed aircraft drinking water rule ADWR compliance data covering October 1, 2022 through September 30, 2025, ranking 10 major and 11 regional airlines using a composite water safety score. What the aircraft drinking water rule requires. The Aircraft Drinking Water Rule, established under the Safe Drinking Water Act, applies to U.S. air carriers operating aircraft with onboard drinking water systems on flights that include at least one U.S. point of service. At its core, ADWR requires airlines to monitor aircraft water systems for total coliform bacteria, test for E. coli when indicator bacteria are detected, disinfect and flush water systems on defined schedules, restrict access and provide alternative water when contamination is confirmed, maintain records and report compliance data to the EPA. These are not discretionary practices. They are codified requirements designed to prevent microbial contamination in systems that experience stagnation, temperature fluctuation, and frequent handling. Results of the study. Using ADWR compliance records, the study found significant performance divergence across carriers. Among major airlines, Delta Airlines and Frontier Airlines received the highest scores, while American Airlines and JetBlue ranked lowest. Among regional carriers, GoJet Airlines scored highest, while Mesa Airlines and Commute Air showed the weakest performance, including elevated total coliform detection rates. Across the full airline universe, the study analyzed 30,674 sampling locations, with 2.66% testing positive for total coliform bacteria and 32 maximum contaminant level violations for E. coli identified during the study window. The report emphasizes that E. coli violations, while relatively infrequent, were the strongest downward driver of airline scores, reflecting the seriousness of those events under drinking water regulations. The enforcement gap and why it matters in 2026. The study's most pointed criticism is directed at enforcement. It argues that civil penalties for ADWR violations remain extremely rare, even when compliance data shows repeated or unresolved issues. From a risk perspective, this matters for three reasons. Low visibility compliance programs can drift. When enforcement is perceived as infrequent, maintenance, testing, and reporting rigor can erode, especially in operational areas that sit outside core safety or revenue functions. Distributed systems are harder to control. Aircraft take on water from multiple airports using varied equipment, making compliance dependent on supply chain hygiene as much as internal maintenance. Public scorecards now shape exposure. Even without fines, third-party analyses based on regulatory data can create reputational, workforce, and procurement consequences faster than formal enforcement actions. In effect, where enforcement is limited, transparency becomes the accountability mechanism. That dynamic, where reporting outcomes shape exposure even in the absence of penalties, is becoming a defining feature of the compliance landscape. You've been listening to Sustainability Soundbites by Environment and Energy Leader. For partnership opportunities, please reach out to our team.